Welcome to Stitching with Cindy Box. Today's today's block is a variation of the friendship star. For this project, I chose to go ahead and do it all scrappy with just the white being a consistent fabric. With this project, you could do half square triangles. I'm going to do it in a different technique using a variation of a flying geese. Excuse me. So let's get started. So this is done with a 2.5 inch block in the center. These colors are 2.5 inch squares. Okay, so we're doing 2.5 inch squares in the center and 4 on the side. The white is a 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangle. And what you do is you lay your 2.5 inch square on your white rectangle, sew down the diagonal from corner to corner, trim it, press it back, and do the same on this edge. Now, if this was a flying geese, you would have your seam here. So that's why I said it was similar to a flying geese. It's a variation. So you're just still doing the diagonal seams, except they do not come together. They run parallel to each other. So you get this strip in the middle versus the triangle of the flying geese. Very easy to do. I did mine with the chain piecing method. Did all one end and then I did all the other end. And it's really simple and fun, and it's one of those sewing projects where you can just kind of get in the zone and randomly choose a piece of your 2.5 inch squares and just make sure that they're not the same on both ends, and you're good to go. The other thing that I like about this variation of the friendship star is that when you put your 4 blocks together in the corner, you're going to make a secondary pattern. So you will have this square design there at the top, and if you have depending on how many rows, you will have one at the top and at the bottom on each side, except for the last row, which would, obviously just be a half like that. I think that's cute. I think it's cool when patterns do that. They give you that secondary block. It just really adds to the whole overall look of the project. So I'm planning on making this into a wall hanging. I'm not exactly sure how large I'm going to go. Kind of just going to go with the flow with it and enjoy using up some of my leftover pieces that I've cut into 2.5 inch squares. I know sometimes I see on different videos and in chats, how do you manage your scraps? Well, for myself, I like to cut them down into different size squares and strips. So this is my pile of leftovers that have been cut down to 2.5 inch squares. So for this project, I just randomly pick out different colors and I'm set, ready to go. I like to have it pre-cut like that, so I'm not spending time cutting when I'm in the mood to just sit down and sew. Again, a great chain piecing, scrap busting project. So how do you assemble it? So once you have all your side pieces made, you can go ahead and lay them out like this. All right, so let me grab one more over here. All right, like that. And then, you can finger press that down, take it to the iron, press those down, and you need your 2.5 inch block, your 2.5 inch square in the center. Now, there's only one spot that's a little tricky, and it's not bad. You can do it. when you take your first seam, I chose to make this my first seam here. Let's just kind of blow those apart. This here is my first seam. When you lay that block, that square over the top, you're going to sew it just like a regular seam until you get to the end. You're going to want to make sure you leave at least 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to use that room to guide this seam in later, and then you can catch down when you finish this seam. Okay, so first seam is this part right here, this seam going here. All right, and that is what I've done here. That's my first seam. All right, so that's step 1. Then you're going to just work around your block. So here's step 2, which is this piece here being sewn here. We're working on this seam. All right, so just go across, and when you lay this down, you simply want to nest these 2 seams together. Make sure they're nested, and on this seam you can kind of feel it when you're sewing it. You just want to make sure that that needle point hits the seam here and here. All right, to give yourself a nice point. That one's off just a little bit, but the nice thing about Scrappy project is your eye is so drawn to all the different colors. It gives you a little bit more grace with your points. All right, so just look at that diagonal seam, feel where it's lined up on the seam underneath, and where that needle hits them coming together. All right, so now we've got this construction, and we're ready to add this piece. Okay, so here is the block at that space. So you just do the same thing, adding the side piece here, nesting, lining up those seams, and that piece gets sewn on. All right, so we really only have this last piece, and it's done in the same way, except you need to be careful with the corner. All right, so here we are. This is where we're at. We've got our original seam, the first step, the second step, and now we're working on this third step. Again, you're just going to nest, line up, and when you get here to the end, you're going to make sure that you're not catching this side. So you just kind of want to pull that out of your way so that you're just sewing that original square. All right, so just pull that out of your way, clip it, pin it, hold it, however you want to do it, and bring this down. Now if you give yourself a little bit more than that 1/4 of an inch in that original seam, that saving that you did, you have a little bit extra room to pull that back. You don't want to be right up on top of your stitching. Now the last seam you're going to do is going to catch that in. So if you had stayed back to here even, you're going to catch it now, because you're going to fold that last seam over, and it is another just straight seam. All right, doing the same as you did before, nesting and lining up, and just finish that seam. It's really not a tricky block. It's just that one little area that you need to be mindful of, but it's fun in the chain piecing and getting this secondary corner in there. I mean, I think it's going to be really super cute as a wall hanging. I'm thinking about doing maybe 4 by 4, because I do want to have this secondary block show up enough. And if you only do 2, you only have it once. But as a table runner, having it once would be fine. Having it twice, however you wanted to do it. I really think it's going to be fun. Enjoy your stitching. Have a great day. Please like and subscribe. Bye-bye.